The first thing you notice is the silence. It's not a peaceful quiet, you know? It's a loud, heavy silence that presses in on you from all sides. Jasper's side of the closet is empty. The scent of his stupid, worn-out leather jacket is finally gone from the entryway, replaced by nothing. His ridiculous collection of sci-fi paperbacks, the ones with the pulpy, colorful covers he loved so much, has vanished from the bookshelf. I'm not crying, I feel like I should be, but I'm just numb. I just sit here on our couch and listen to the hum of the refrigerator. It's the only sound left. And in my head, there's another sound, the replay of that single moment, a continuous loop of the second I broke everything, the look on his face when I said it. God, that look. It was 2 weeks ago. We were at my colleague Tara's housewarming party. You know the type. A sprawling loft apartment with exposed brick walls that probably cost more than my car, way too many fragile-looking succulents, and the low thrum of some obscure indie band pulsating from hidden speakers. The whole place smelled like sandalwood and expensive gin. And the people. God, the people. A curated collection of urban professionals who pride themselves on being, I don't know, emotionally evolved. Progressive, whatever the hell they call it. They floated around in their minimalist linen outfits, talking about open relationships and the social construct of jealousy like they were discussing a new restaurant. It was a whole performance of enlightened superiority, and I felt like I was failing an audition I didn't know I was in. I could feel Jasper physically recoiling from the atmosphere all night. He's just not like that. He's a quiet, steady, one-woman kind of guy. It's one of the things I loved most about him, that unwavering, uncomplicated sense of us. But he was trying, you know? For me. He held my hand so tight it was almost grounding, a silent anchor in a sea of bullshit. He smiled politely when some guy with a stupid man bun explained his relationship anarchy philosophy, but the smile never reached his eyes. A couple of times, he leaned in, his voice a low rumble in my ear. Hey, you want to get some air on the balcony? It was his out, our shared escape hatch, and both times I brushed him off. In a minute, I'd say, already turning back to listen to Tara talk about how possessiveness is just a trauma response. And me, I was pathetic. I was soaking it all in. The validation, the feeling of being included in this cool, sophisticated crowd. I wanted them to like me. I wanted them to see me as one of them, effortless, modern, secure. Not some clingy, insecure girlfriend who needed constant reassurance. The pressure was all in my head, I know that now. It was this invisible weight, this stupid, desperate need to perform, to fit in with people I didn't even genuinely like that much. They weren't my friends, they were an audience, and I was desperate for their applause. Jasper was my reality, and I let go of his hand to chase a fantasy. The conversation eventually drifted, as it always does in these crowds, to jealousy. Someone was talking about their partner's weekend trip with an ex, and how they felt so much compersion for them. It was all so performative. Then Tara, refilling her wine glass, turned her bright, analytical gaze on me. All the attention in the little circle pivoted with her. "You're pretty quiet over there, Lena," she said with a sly smile. "You must keep a pretty tight leash on Jasper. I mean, look at him." She gestured vaguely at him with her glass. It must be exhausting. It wasn't a question. It was a challenge. A test. And in that split second, with a dozen pairs of enlightened eyes on me, my entire world narrowed to a single, stupid choice. Prove them right and be the insecure girlfriend, or prove them wrong and become one of them. My stupid, pathetic, cowardly brain chose the latter. I let out a laugh. It sounded fake even to my own ears, a little too high-pitched. "God, no, not at all," I said, waving my hand dismissively. The words started tumbling out and I couldn't stop them. I'm not that old school. Honestly. And here it comes, the moment that plays in my head in slow motion, the moment I set our world on fire just to feel warm for a second. I've basically told Jasper he has a green light to, mess around with other people if he wants to. It's just not a big deal for us. We're built on, total trust. I didn't look directly at him when I said it. I couldn't. I was a coward, playing to the crowd, but I saw him in my periphery. The polite, slightly strained smile on his face didn't fall. It froze. It was like a mask that had suddenly hardened, all the warmth and life draining out of it in an instant. And his eyes, I know it sounds like a cliché from a bad movie, but I swear to God, I saw the light in them go out. It was like someone flipped a switch behind his pupils, and everything just went dark and flat. He was looking at me, but he wasn't seeing me anymore. He was seeing a stranger. Then, his hand. The hand that had been my anchor all night, it didn't pull away aggressively. It just went slack. He slowly, deliberately, unlaced his fingers from mine and let his arm drop to his side. The small patch of warmth on my hand, where his had been, instantly felt ice cold. Tara and the others ate it up. "Wow, Lena, that's so incredibly healthy," someone said. I just smiled and nodded, accepting their praise like it was some kind of trophy. But all I could feel was the echoing emptiness, where his hand used to be, and the terrifying, silent chasm that had just opened up right between us. The drive home was the longest 20 minutes of my life. The silence in the car wasn't just an absence of noise, it was a physical presence. It was heavy, suffocating. It filled up all the space between us, pushing us apart. The city lights smeared past the windows, but inside our little metal box, it was completely dark. I tried. I tried to pretend like nothing had happened. I switched on the radio, then immediately switched it off because it felt like a violation of the tomb-like quiet. I attempted a joke about Tara's pretentious cheese board. Can you believe she called it a curated dairy experience? His response was a quiet, non-committal ahem. Not angry, not yelling. That would have been better. I know how to handle his anger. We argue, we get loud, and then we figure it out. This was something else entirely. This was a void. "Are you okay?" I finally asked, my voice sounding small and pathetic. "You've been really quiet since we left." He kept his eyes on the road, his hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, perfectly still. After a long moment, he finally spoke. His voice was flat, devoid of any emotion at all. "I'm just tired, Lena." Just tired, 2 words. But the way he said them, it felt like he was saying so much more. It wasn't the kind of tired that sleep could fix. It was a deep, soul-level exhaustion. The sound of a man who had just given up. I knew, in that moment, that I had broken something fundamental. I just didn't want to admit it to myself. I told myself he was just in a mood, that he'd had too much to drink, that tomorrow morning everything would be back to normal. We'd wake up, and this horrible, icy feeling would have melted away. I was such a fool. A hopeful, naive, absolute fool. When I woke up the next morning, the space next to me in bed was cold. That wasn't unusual. Jasper was an early riser, usually up at dawn for a run or to get a head start on work. I rolled over, pulling his pillow close, expecting to smell his scent on it. But there was nothing. Just the clean, sterile smell of laundry detergent. A knot of unease started to twist in my stomach. I called out his name. "Jasper." Silence. I got out of bed and walked into the living room, and that's when the world tilted on its axis. It was the little things at first. His running shoes were gone from their spot by the door. His favorite coffee mug wasn't in the drying rack. His laptop wasn't on the corner of the dining table where he always left it. My heart started hammering against my ribs. I walked almost in a daze to the closet. I slid the door open. His side was empty. Hangers, bare and skeletal, hung in a perfect, neat line. His shirts, his jackets, the stupid hoodie I always stole from him, all gone. I ran to the bathroom. His toothbrush was gone, his razor, the bottle of aftershave I bought him for his birthday. There was no note on the kitchen counter. No dramatic, angry text message. No missed calls from a final, tearful confrontation. He hadn't fought with me. He hadn't given me a chance to apologize, to explain, to beg. He had just edited himself out of my life. While I was sleeping, he had methodically and silently packed up every trace of his existence in our home and vanished. He ghosted me from our own apartment. The panic hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. My first instinct was my phone. I had to call him. I had to fix this. My fingers were shaking so badly I could barely type in my passcode. I found his name in my favorites and hit call. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. "Hey, you've reached Jasper. Leave a message." His voice, so calm and normal, was like a punch to the gut. I tried again, straight to voicemail. Okay, don't panic." I switched to WhatsApp. I typed out a frantic, rambling message. "Jasper, where are you? Please call me. We need to talk. I'm so sorry about last night. I was an idiot." I hit send. A single, lonely gray checkmark appeared next to my message. Delivered, not read. My breathing got shallow. I opened iMessage, my thumbs flying across the screen. Jasper, please. This is crazy, just talk to me. The little blue bubble with my text turned a sickly, final green. Blocked. My world started to shrink down to the size of my phone screen. Instagram. I typed his username into the search bar. User not found. Facebook. I went to his profile. A blank page with the words, "This content isn't available right now." He had systematically gone through every single digital connection we had and severed it. It was a digital amputation. He hadn't just left our apartment. He had erased himself from my life with a series of cold, efficient clicks. He built a fortress of silence, and I was left outside, screaming at the walls. In a state of pure, unadulterated panic, I did the only other thing I could think of. I called Tara. My voice was a wreck, a high-pitched, sobbing mess that I barely recognized as my own. Through hiccuping breaths, I explained what happened: the empty closet, the missing toothbrush, the wall of digital silence. I was looking for sympathy, for an ally, for someone to tell me this was a crazy overreaction on his part, that he'd come to his senses in a day or two. What I got was a long, uncomfortable silence on the other end of the line. For a solid 10 seconds, the only sound was the faint static of the connection, a dead air that felt louder than a scream. "Oh," she finally said. Her voice was stripped of all its usual confident, breezy warmth. It was flat, cautious, and distant. "Wow, Lena, that's intense." "Intense, Tara, he left me. He packed his things and disappeared because of a stupid joke." I was practically pleading with her to agree with me, to validate my narrative that this was all a huge misunderstanding. Another beat of silence. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head as she calculated the precise, socially acceptable way to detach herself from my disaster. "Listen, Lena," she started, and her tone was so careful, so measured, like she was talking to a child or a lunatic. I don't really think I should get in the middle of this. It sounds really personal. But you were there, you heard what I said. You have to tell him it was nothing, that I was just trying to be cool for you and your friends." The accusation slipped out before I could stop it, raw and desperate. For me, her voice sharpened instantly, a defensive edge cutting through her practiced neutrality. "Whoa, hang on, I didn't make you say anything. That was all you." The shift was immediate. I was no longer a friend in crisis. I was a liability. "Right," she continued, her tone now brisk and dismissive. "Look, I'm really sorry this is happening, truly, but my advice. Maybe you should just give him some space. That's probably for the best." It was the most polite, brutal brush-off I've ever received. It was a social closing of ranks. She wasn't my friend. She was a spectator who had enjoyed the show last night, but had no interest in helping clean up the mess. In that moment, the hollowness of my little performance at the party came crashing down on me. I had traded the one person who genuinely loved me for the fleeting approval of people who wouldn't even offer a single word of comfort when it all fell apart. I had sold my soul for nothing, and now I was completely, utterly alone with the consequences, disowned by the very audience I had tried so desperately to impress. A few days passed in a blur of unanswered calls and the suffocating silence of the apartment. I was numb, moving like a ghost through rooms that felt too big, too empty. I started cleaning, a frantic, desperate attempt to impose some kind of order on my imploding world. I was cleaning out the drawer of the little desk in our bedroom, the one he used as a makeshift office, when I found it. Tucked under a stack of old utility bills was a plain white envelope. My heart leaped. A letter, an explanation, a chance. My fingers trembled as I tore it open. But it wasn't a letter. It was a printout, a confirmation email for a flight booking, 2 round-trip tickets to Reykjavik, Iceland, for this coming October. The departure date was my birthday. The passenger names were listed clearly: Jasper Reed, Lena Petrova. I just stared at it. Last winter, during a blizzard, we were curled up on the couch watching some nature documentary, and I'd made an offhand comment. "God, I'd love to see the northern lights just once before I die." It was just a throwaway line, a daydream. I'd forgotten I'd even said it. He hadn't. He hadn't said a word, but he had remembered. He had taken my silly, fleeting wish and was quietly, secretly turning it into a reality. A surprise. He was building a future for us, a beautiful, thoughtful one, full of things he knew would make me happy. And as I stood there, in our silent apartment, holding the ghost of a future I had personally incinerated, that's when the numbness finally broke. The grief hit me like a tidal wave. I collapsed onto the floor, clutching that stupid piece of paper to my chest, and I wailed. Not crying, not sobbing, but a raw, guttural, animal sound of pure loss that was torn from the deepest part of my soul. I wasn't just mourning a breakup. I was mourning the beautiful life he had been planning for me, a life I had traded for a cheap laugh at a party. It's been almost a month now. The raw, screaming phase is over, replaced by this dull, constant ache. My life has become a pathetic two-act play. By day, I pretend to function. I go to work, I smile at people, I make small talk. By night, I become a ghost, haunting the digital landscape of a life I'm no longer a part of. My thumb has a mind of its own, compulsively opening Instagram, navigating to the profiles of our mutual friends. I scroll, not looking for anything in particular, just searching. For a glimpse, for a sign, and then last night I found one. He was in a picture posted by an old college friend of his. It was a group shot, taken in some loud, crowded bar. There were 5 or 6 of them, all grinning, holding up beers. And there was Jasper, right in the middle. He was smiling. It wasn't his polite, reserved smile. It was a huge, genuine, all-teeth grin. The kind I hadn't seen on his face in months. He looked happy. No, more than happy. He looked free. Like a massive weight had been lifted off his shoulders. He looked relaxed and light and utterly, completely fine without me. I've been staring at that photo for hours. I zoom in on his face, on the crinkles around his eyes, on the carefree way he's leaning against his friend. I analyze the background, the other faces, the girl standing next to him who has her hand casually resting on his arm. Every pixel is a new form of torture. This picture, this tiny, insignificant snapshot of his new, happy life, has become my own personal hell. And I know, with a certainty that chills me to the bone, that I can't stop looking. This is my punishment. To be the silent, invisible stalker of the life I was supposed to be in, watching the man I love finally become happy, now that I'm gone.